the man who entered my life without warning. I never knew the truth about my husband. If I had known who he really was, I would have never married him. I would have walked away before my heart became involved, before my life became tied to his, before everything changed. But at that time, I was just an ordinary woman who believed in love. I believed that when someone came into your life with kind words and gentle attention, it meant something real. I believed that when someone chose you, it was because they truly cared. I didn't know that sometimes people don't choose you because they love you. Sometimes they choose you because they know you will trust them. It all started on a night that felt warm, bright, and full of happiness. I had gone to attend my friend's wedding. I remember getting ready that evening, standing in front of the mirror, fixing my hair, adjusting my dress, and smiling softly to myself. I wasn't expecting anything special that night. I was just happy to celebrate my friend's big day. When I arrived at the wedding hall, it was already full of people. The soft golden lights reflected from the walls, and beautiful decorations covered every corner. The air smelled like flowers and fresh perfume. Music played gently in the background, and the sound of laughter filled the room. Everyone looked happy. Families were sitting together, talking and smiling. Children were running around, laughing loudly without a care in the world. Couples were dancing slowly, enjoying the moment. I joined my friends, and soon we were laughing and talking just like everyone else. We took pictures together, we joked. We danced when our favorite songs played. For those few hours, I forgot about every stress in my life. I felt light, peaceful, free. I remember smiling so much that my cheeks started to hurt. And then, in the middle of all that happiness, I felt something strange. It was a feeling that someone was watching me. At first, I ignored it. I thought maybe I was imagining things. But when I turned my head slightly, my eyes stopped on someone standing across the hall. A man. He was standing alone near the wall, away from the crowd. He wasn't talking to anyone. He wasn't using his phone. He wasn't eating. He was just standing there quietly, observing everything. But mostly, he was observing me. Every time I laughed, his eyes were there. Every time I moved, he noticed. When I looked away, I could still feel his presence. He was tall and carried himself with calm confidence. He wore a clean, well-fitted suit. His face looked serious, but not angry, just quiet, controlled. There was something about him that made him different from everyone else in the room. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't trying to be noticed. And yet, I noticed him. At one point, our eyes met. I quickly looked away, pretending I hadn't seen him. My heart started beating faster, and I didn't even understand why. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He didn't come closer. He just stayed there, watching, waiting. The entire night passed like that. I danced with my friends. I laughed. I enjoyed the celebration. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I was aware of him. He never approached me. Not once. And when the wedding finally ended, everyone slowly began to leave. People said their goodbyes. The music faded. The lights became softer. I walked out of the hall with my friends and went home. By the time I reached my house, I had almost forgotten about him. Almost. 2 days later, I was sitting alone in my room when my phone suddenly vibrated beside me. I picked it up and saw a message from an unknown number. Just one simple word, "Hi." I stared at the screen, confused. I didn't recognize the number. I wondered who it could be. Before I could decide whether to reply or ignore it, another message appeared. "I hope you don't mind me texting you." My heart began to feel slightly nervous. I typed back carefully, "Who is this?" A few seconds passed. Then the reply came, "I saw you at the wedding." My fingers froze on the screen. My mind immediately went back to that night. The lights, the music, and him. Then another message appeared. I was the one standing across the hall. I couldn't stop looking at you. My heart started beating faster. He remembered me. He had noticed me the same way I had noticed him. I'm sorry if this feels sudden, he wrote again. I didn't have the courage to come talk to you that night, but I couldn't forget you after that. I didn't know what to say. No stranger had ever spoken to me like that before. Part of me felt nervous. Part of me felt surprised. But part of me felt curious. I stared at his messages for a long time before replying. Finally, I wrote, "How did you get my number?" He replied honestly, "I asked your friend. I hope that's okay. I just wanted one chance to talk to you. I should have been more careful. I should have ignored him, but I didn't." Because in that moment, his words didn't feel dangerous. They felt sincere. And that was the moment everything began. The messages that slowly pulled me in. After that night, something between us quietly began to grow. At first, our conversations were simple. He asked me how my day was. He asked about my family. He asked about the things I liked and the things I didn't. His messages were calm, respectful, and thoughtful. He never rushed me. He never forced anything. And somehow, that made me trust him more. Every morning, I would wake up and see his name on my phone. "Good morning. I hope you slept well." And every night, before I went to sleep, there would always be another message waiting. "Good night. Take care of yourself." No one had ever shown me that kind of consistent attention before. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, and slowly, it became important to me. At first, I would reply after hours. Sometimes I was busy. Sometimes I didn't know what to say. But he was always patient. He never complained. He never showed anger. Instead, he made me feel comfortable, safe, seen. One night, he asked me, "Can I ask you something personal?" I hesitated for a moment, then replied, "Okay." He wrote, "Why were you alone so much at the wedding? You looked happy, but also distant." His question surprised me. No one had ever noticed that before. I replied honestly, "I was with my friends. I wasn't alone." He answered gently, "Yes, but even when you were surrounded by people, you felt different. I don't know how to explain it." I stared at his message for a long time. It felt strange that someone who didn't even know me could see something so deeply. From that moment, our conversations became more personal. He told me about his life. He told me about his work, his responsibilities, and his dreams for the future. He spoke like a man who wanted stability, like a man who wanted a family, and he listened to me. He listened carefully to everything I said. He remembered small details. If I ever mentioned being tired, he would tell me to rest. If I ever mentioned being sad, he would ask what happened. If I ever disappeared for a few hours, he would message me, "Are you okay?" It made me feel important, valued, chosen. Days passed like this. Then one day, he said something that made my heart pause. "I feel like I've known you for much longer than this." I didn't know how to respond. He continued, "There is something about you that feels peaceful to me. When I talk to you, my mind feels calm." No one had ever spoken to me like that before. His words were gentle but powerful. And slowly, without realizing it, I began to wait for his messages. I began to check my phone more often. I began to think about him during the day. Then, on the third day of our conversations, everything suddenly changed. That evening, my phone vibrated again. It was him. "I want to tell you something important." I felt nervous for no reason. "What is it?" I replied. There was a longer pause this time. Then his message appeared. "I want to marry you." My heart started beating so fast that I could feel it in my chest. I stared at the screen, thinking maybe I had read it wrong. but the words were still there, clear, direct, serious. I know this sounds sudden, he continued, but I am serious. I see you as my future wife. I didn't know what to think. We had only been talking for a few days. It didn't make sense. You don't even know me, I replied. His answer came immediately. I know enough. I know how you speak. I know how you think. I know how you make me feel. I tried to stay logical. This is too fast, I said, but he didn't hesitate. Some people wait for years and never find the right person, and some people recognize them immediately. I felt my emotions becoming confused. Part of me was afraid, part of me was unsure, but part of me was moved by his confidence. I don't want to lose you, he wrote. I don't want someone else to come into your life while I stay silent. Then he said the words that broke down my remaining doubts. I promise I will protect you. I promise I will respect you. I promise I will never hurt you. Promises, simple words, but powerful enough to change everything. He didn't sound like he was joking. He sounded certain, serious, sure of me, sure of us. Please, he wrote again, say yes. I held my phone in my hands for a long time. My mind was full of questions, but my heart was full of hope. And in that moment, I made the decision that would change my life forever. The wedding that felt like destiny. I remember the exact moment I said yes. My hands were slightly shaking as I held my phone. My mind was still full of questions, still trying to understand how everything was happening so fast. But my heart wanted to believe him. No one had ever been so sure about me before. No one had ever spoken about a future with me so clearly. So I typed one word, yes. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before sending it. My heart was beating fast, and I could feel a strange mixture of fear and excitement. The moment he saw my reply, his response came immediately. You just made me the happiest man alive. I could almost feel his happiness through the screen. He continued, I promise you, you will never regret this decision. I will spend my life making you happy. At that moment, his words felt warm, safe, certain, and slowly, I allowed myself to believe that maybe this was destiny. After that day, everything started moving very quickly. He began calling me more often instead of just texting. His voice was calm and confident. When he spoke, he sounded serious, like a man who knew exactly what he wanted. We talked about our future. We talked about marriage. We talked about building a home together. He told me he would speak to his family soon, and he did. Within a short time, his family contacted mine. They spoke respectfully. They said he was serious about marrying me. They said he had chosen me himself. My family was surprised at how fast everything was happening. So was I. But when I spoke to him, he always reassured me. Don't worry, he would say softly. Everything will be fine. I am here. His confidence made me feel calm. Soon, the day came when he and his family came to my house. I remember that day clearly. I was nervous. My hands were cold. My heart wouldn't stop beating fast. I stayed in my room while our families sat together and talked. I could hear their voices from outside. Serious voices, important voices, voices that were deciding my future. After some time, my mother came into my room and smiled at me gently. He seems like a good man, she said. Those words made me feel relieved. I trusted my family, and I trusted him. Everything was decided quickly after that. Our wedding date was set. There was no long waiting period, no long engagement, just a decision, and then action. The wedding itself was small and simple. It wasn't a grand, expensive wedding, but it was beautiful in its own way. Close family members were there, a few friends, people who truly mattered. I remember standing in front of the mirror, wearing my white dress. For a moment, I just looked at myself. I looked like a bride. I looked like someone who was about to begin a new life. I felt nervous, but I also felt hopeful. When I walked into the room and saw him standing there in his suit, waiting for me, he looked proud, confident, and when our eyes met, he smiled. It wasn't a big smile. It was calm, certain, like he was sure he had made the right choice. That smile made my fears disappear. During the ceremony, he stayed close to me. He spoke gently. He treated me with care and respect. Everyone around us looked happy. Our family smiled. Our friends congratulated us. People told me I was lucky, and I believed them. That day, I became his wife. That day, I left my old life behind and stepped into a new one. I believed I had found someone who truly loved me. I believed I was safe. I believed I was starting a life filled with honesty, respect, and loyalty. And in the beginning, everything really did feel perfect. He was kind to me, gentle, attentive. He spoke to me with love in his voice. He made me feel important. Every day, he showed me care in small ways. He asked if I had eaten. He asked if I needed anything. He asked if I was happy. Sometimes he brought me small gifts without any reason. Sometimes flowers, sometimes sweets, sometimes just simple things that made me smile. He would look at me and say, "I am lucky to have you." And every time he said it, I believed him. I truly believed I had married the right man. I truly believed my life was finally complete. But I didn't know. Some truths don't appear in the beginning. Some truths wait. They wait quietly until it's too late. The first change I didn't want to see. The first month of our marriage felt peaceful. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed right. We were still learning about each other, still adjusting to our new life together. Every morning, I would wake up beside him and remind myself that I was now someone's wife. It was a strange but comforting feeling. He continued to treat me kindly. He spoke gently. He showed care in small ways. Sometimes he would bring home little gifts. Sometimes he would bring my favorite snacks without me asking. Sometimes he would simply sit beside me and ask how my day was. Those small moments meant everything to me. They made me feel loved. They made me feel secure. At night, we would sit together and talk about the future. He spoke about building a home. He spoke about having children someday. He spoke about growing old together. And every time he spoke about those things, I listened with a full heart. I trusted him completely. I never imagined that trust could break. Then one evening, something small happened. Something so small that most people would probably ignore it. But sometimes, the smallest moments are the ones that change everything. He was sitting on the couch in the living room, holding his phone. I was nearby, cleaning and organizing a few things. At first, I didn't pay attention, but then I heard him laugh softly. It wasn't a loud laugh. It was quiet, private, different. I turned my head slightly and looked at him. He was smiling at his phone. Not the kind of smile he gave everyone. Not the polite smile. Not the casual smile. It was something else. Something warmer. Something more personal. His eyes were focused on the screen, and he looked completely lost in that moment. I felt a strange feeling in my chest. Not pain. Not fear. Just discomfort. I walked a little closer and asked in a calm voice, "Who are you talking to?" The moment he heard my voice, his expression changed. His smile disappeared instantly. He locked his phone quickly and looked at me. "No one," he said. His answer came too fast, too automatic. I tried to stay calm. "No one," I repeated gently. He avoided my eyes. "Just a friend," he said. His voice sounded casual, but something about it didn't feel natural. He didn't explain further. He didn't show me the phone. He didn't say anything else. Instead, He placed the phone face down beside him, as if he didn't want me to see it. I stood there for a moment, waiting for him to say more, but he didn't. The silence between us felt strange, uncomfortable. This had never happened before. He had never hidden anything from me, or at least, I thought he hadn't. I wanted to ask more questions. I wanted to ask who that friend was. I wanted to ask why he smiled like that, but I stopped myself. Because I trusted him. Because I didn't want to seem insecure. Because I believed that a good wife should trust her husband. So I said nothing. I simply nodded and walked away. But something inside me had changed. It was small, almost invisible, but it was there. A quiet doubt, a quiet question. That night, he acted normal. He spoke to me the same way. He ate dinner with me. He asked me about my day. He even smiled at me. But something felt different. Not in what he did, but in what I felt. For the first time since our marriage began, I felt distance. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself everything was fine. And slowly, days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Life moved forward. And soon, we became busy with responsibilities. Later, we had 2 beautiful children, a son and a daughter. They became the center of my life. My days were filled with caring for them, loving them, protecting them. And for a while, I believed everything was still okay. I believed we were still a happy family. But deep inside, that small moment never completely left my mind. Because sometimes, the first lie doesn't break your heart. It only prepares you for the truth that comes later. The distance that slowly grew between us. At first, the changes were so small that I could barely notice them. They didn't happen suddenly. They happened slowly, quietly, like something fading away without making a sound. After our children were born, life became busy. My days were filled with responsibilities. I woke up early every morning to take care of them, feeding them, cleaning, making sure they were safe, comfortable, and happy. I gave all my energy to our family, and I believed he was doing the same. But without realizing it, he had already started drifting away from me. He began coming home later than usual. In the beginning, it wasn't very late, maybe an hour or 2 after his normal time. When I asked him, he answered calmly. "Work is busy," he said. "I have more responsibilities now." I believed him. I didn't want to doubt him. I wanted to be supportive. So I would nod and say, "Okay." I would serve his dinner. I would ask if he was tired. I would care for him the way a wife does. But as time passed, his late arrivals became more frequent. Sometimes he came home when the children were already asleep. Sometimes he came home so late that the house felt cold and empty before he arrived. And sometimes, he didn't come home at all until the middle of the night. Each time, he had an explanation. Work meeting, office problems, extra responsibilities. His words always sounded reasonable, but his behavior felt different. When he was home, he wasn't really present. His mind seemed somewhere else. He spent more time on his phone than talking to me. Sometimes he would sit quietly, staring at the screen, typing messages with full attention. And whenever I entered the room, he would immediately lock the phone. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was normal. Everyone uses their phone. Everyone talks to friends. But deep inside, a quiet discomfort was growing. One night, I sat beside him and gently said, "You've been very busy lately." He didn't look at me. "Yes," he replied simply. I waited, hoping he would say more, but he didn't. The silence between us felt heavier than before. It felt unfamiliar. This wasn't the same man who once stayed up late just to talk to me. This wasn't the same man who once wanted to know every detail about my day. Now, he barely asked anything. Sometimes entire days passed without him asking me how I felt, without him really seeing me. What hurt the most wasn't just his absence, it was his distance, even when he was physically there. One evening, I reached for his phone playfully and said, "Let me see what keeps you so busy." It was a simple moment, a normal moment between husband and wife, but his reaction shocked me. He pulled the phone away immediately. His face became serious. "Don't touch my phone," he said firmly. His tone was cold in a way I had never heard before. I froze. I looked at him, confused. "I was just joking," I said quietly. But he didn't smile. He didn't soften. He just held the phone tightly, like he was protecting something. In that moment, I felt something break inside me. Not loudly, not completely, but enough to make me feel the truth I was trying to avoid. From that day on, he never left his phone near me. He carried it everywhere, even inside the house, even when he went to another room, even when he went to sleep. It became a part of him, something he never let go of. And slowly, I began to understand. There was something in that phone, something he didn't want me to see, something he didn't want me to know. I didn't confront him. I didn't accuse him, because part of me was still afraid of the answer. Part of me still hoped. I was wrong, but deep inside, I already knew something was happening behind my back, something that would soon destroy everything I believed in. The night I discovered the truth, there are moments in life that change everything. Moments you never expect. Moments that arrive quietly, but leave permanent damage behind. For me, that moment came on an ordinary night. There was nothing special about that evening. It felt like any other day. The children had eaten dinner and were already asleep in their room. The house was quiet, filled with the kind of silence that comes after a long day. He was sitting in the living room, using his phone as usual. His face was calm, emotionless, distant. I was in the kitchen, finishing some small chores, but my mind was not at peace. For weeks, something had felt wrong. His behavior, his distance, his secrecy. But I still hadn't found proof. I was still holding on to hope. Then suddenly, he stood up. "I'll be back," he said casually. He walked toward the other room, and for the first time in a long time, he left his phone behind. It was lying there on the table, unlocked, unprotected, alone. My heart began to beat faster. I stared at the phone from across the room. For a moment, I froze. My mind immediately filled with questions. Should I touch it? Should I look? Or should I walk away and pretend nothing was wrong? My hands felt cold. My breathing became slower. I could hear my own heartbeat in the silence. I told myself, if there is nothing to hide, there will be nothing to find. But deep inside, I was afraid of what I might see. I slowly walked toward the table. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached the phone, I stood there for a few seconds, just looking at it. This small object held answers. Answers I wasn't sure I was ready to face. My fingers moved slowly. And then, I picked it up. The screen lit up in my hand. There were messages open. Messages from a name I didn't recognize. My chest tightened. My hands started shaking. I opened the conversation. And in that moment, my entire world shattered. The messages were not normal. They were not friendly. They were not innocent. They were intimate, personal, romantic. He had written words to her that he had never written to me. "My love, I miss you. I can't wait to see you again." My eyes froze on the screen. My heart felt like it had stopped beating. I kept reading, hoping somehow I was misunderstanding. But the truth was clear. Painfully clear. He wasn't just talking to her. He loved her. Or at least, he told her he did. There were pictures too. Pictures of them together. Smiling. Standing close. Comfortable. happy. He looked like a different person in those pictures. A person I didn't recognize. A person who belonged to someone else. Tears filled my eyes. My vision became blurry. My hands were shaking so much I could barely hold the phone. My mind kept repeating the same question. Why? Why would he do this to me? I had given him everything. My trust, my loyalty, my life, and this was the truth he had hidden from me. I continued scrolling through the messages, and what I discovered hurt even more. He had been talking to her for a long time. Not days, not weeks, years. Even before he married me, he had never truly left her. I was never the only one. I was never his only love. I was just his other life. At that moment, I heard his footsteps coming back. My heart started racing. I quickly looked up. He entered the room, and when his eyes saw the phone in my hands, his face changed. All the color disappeared. All the confidence disappeared. In that moment, he knew that I had seen everything, and nothing would ever be the same again. The truth was worse than I imagined. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The silence between us felt heavy, suffocating, and unbearable. I was still holding his phone in my trembling hands. My eyes were full of tears, but I wasn't crying loudly. The pain was too deep for sound. It was the kind of pain that lives inside your chest and slowly breaks you from within. He stood there, frozen. His eyes were fixed on me, then on the phone, then back on me. He already knew what I had seen. He already knew there was no way to hide it anymore. My voice finally came out, weak and broken. What is this? He didn't answer. He just stood there in silence. My tears began to fall. I asked you, what is this? I repeated, louder this time. He walked closer slowly, his face filled with panic. Give me the phone, he said quietly. I pulled it away. No, I said. My voice was shaking, but my hands held the phone tightly. I want answers. He ran his hand over his face nervously. He couldn't look directly into my eyes anymore. It's not what you think, he said. Those words hurt more than the truth itself. Not what I think, I cried. My love, my everything. I miss you. I repeated his messages out loud. You wrote these words to her. Words you never even said to me. He stayed silent. His silence was an answer. My heart was breaking more with every second. How long? I asked. He didn't reply. How long? I shouted. My voice echoed in the room. Finally, he spoke. Before our marriage, he said quietly. My entire body froze. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. You mean, you were with her before you married me? He lowered his head. Yes. The room felt like it was spinning. And after our marriage? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence told me everything. He had never stopped. Not before. Not after. Not ever. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I felt like a stranger in my own life. I kept scrolling through the messages, trying to understand who she was. And then I saw her pictures clearly. The moment I recognized her face, my heart stopped. I knew her. She wasn't a stranger. She was from my village. Someone I had seen before. Someone I had spoken to before. The shock was unbearable. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was humiliation. Her, I whispered. You chose her. He said nothing. My hands were shaking as I looked at her pictures again. She wasn't younger than me. She wasn't more beautiful than me. She wasn't someone special. In fact, she was 5 years older than him. She had 3 children of her own. Her husband worked abroad, far away from home. And while her husband was away working to support his family, my husband was living a secret life with her. I felt sick, physically sick. How could you do this? I asked him, my voice full of pain. How could you marry me when you were already with her? He stepped closer to me. I'm sorry, he said. I made a mistake. A mistake. That word filled me with anger. A mistake? I shouted. A mistake is something that happens once. This wasn't once. This was years. You lied to me every single day. My entire body was shaking. I trusted you, I said through tears. I left everything behind for you. I gave you my life, and you gave your love to someone else. He tried to come closer, but I stepped back. Don't touch me, I said. My voice was cold now, empty, broken. In that moment, I realized something painful. The man I had married, the man I had trusted, the man I had built my life around, never truly belonged to me. He had been living a lie, and I had been living inside it, leaving him behind. The moment I realized the truth, everything inside me shattered. He kept apologizing. His words poured out, trying to fill the emptiness he had created. I'm sorry, he said over and over. It won't happen again. Please, give me another chance. But his apologies were empty. They were like echoes in a hollow room there, but meaningless. I couldn't understand how someone could live two lives at the same time. How someone could lie every single day, smiling at me, whispering words of love, while his heart belonged somewhere else. My body trembled. My mind raced. My heart ached so much that I felt I couldn't breathe. I looked at him, searching for any hint of honesty, any sign that he truly regretted what he had done. But I saw only guilt, mixed with fear. Fear of losing me. Fear of facing the consequences of his own choices. I knew I couldn't forgive him, not yet. Not when the betrayal was so deep. Not when the truth had shattered everything I believed about him. I made a decision, a painful decision, a decision that I never thought I would have to make. I took my children in my arms, my little boy and girl, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm that had erupted around us. Their trust in their father had not been broken yet. I wanted to protect them. I wanted to protect what little innocence they had left. I left our home that night. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't explain. I didn't fight. I just left. I went to my parents' house and stayed there in silence. For a whole month, I stayed quiet. I didn't speak about the betrayal. I didn't speak about him. I didn't want to hear anything from anyone who might try to convince me to forgive him. Eventually, my parents noticed my distance. Why aren't you going back home? They asked. I didn't tell them the whole truth. I couldn't. Some parts of this pain were too personal, too deep. But I told them enough that something was wrong, and I couldn't go back yet. At first, they didn't believe me. You have children, they said. Please forgive him. People make mistakes. Maybe he will change. And I wanted to believe that too. I really did. Then he came. He came begging again. Please, he said softly. I know I hurt you, but I promise I will change. For the sake of our children, please give me another chance. Part of me wanted to believe him. Part of me wanted my life to be simple again. Part of me wanted my children to have their father without pain, without knowing the truth. So I agreed hesitantly. I gave him one more chance. But my heart had already begun to harden. I couldn't forget. I couldn't erase the pain. I couldn't trust him like I had before. Even though we were back under the same roof, something had changed. I realized then that giving him a second chance didn't heal me. It only delayed the moment when I would have to face reality. History repeats, and my heart breaks again. For a brief moment, I tried to believe. I told myself that maybe people could change, that maybe love could fix mistakes, that maybe this time he would be different. But reality arrived quietly, just as it had before. Within a few months, the same pattern began again. The late nights returned. The secretive phone messages returned. The distance between us returned, heavier than before. At first, I wanted to deny it. I didn't want to see the truth. I told myself, maybe it's just work. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe he's just tired. But deep down, I already knew. Then one evening, I saw them. I was walking past the driveway when I noticed his car parked slightly away from home. And there they were, together, laughing, smiling, comfortable. The same woman. My heart stopped. Everything I had feared, every quiet suspicion I had felt over the years, became reality in that instant. He hadn't changed. He never changed. That night, he came home as usual, acting like nothing had happened. "I'm sorry," he said. "You are the best wife, the best mother. You're my angel. Please forgive me." And my chest ached as I listened. I had given him a second chance. I had tried to trust him again. But the truth was inescapable. He had learned nothing. He had never intended to change. And in that moment, I understood one thing very clearly. My life, my heart, my children, they deserved better. I realized I could no longer live in denial. I could no longer pretend that love and forgiveness could erase betrayal. I made a decision for myself, a decision for my children. I would not let anyone control my life or manipulate my heart again. I decided to leave him, to divorce him, to remove the person who had caused so much pain from our lives. It was not easy. I left with my heart broken. I left my children temporarily with my parents because I needed to protect them from the chaos for a little while. I went abroad to work, to rebuild myself, to breathe again. And though it hurt to leave, though it pained me to be separated from my children for a short time, I knew this was the only way to regain my strength. I knew that I had to put myself first, for the sake of my future and my children's future, because sometimes, being strong means walking away from the people you once trusted the most. Because sometimes, being brave means starting over completely alone if you have to. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief, freedom, and slowly, the quiet voice inside me whispered, "You are strong enough to survive this. You will rebuild. You will live." Rebuilding my life and finding strength. After leaving him, life was quiet at first. Quiet and painfully empty. I stayed with my parents for a while. Every morning I woke up, I felt the weight of what had happened pressing on my chest. But little by little, I began to breathe again. I began to think clearly. I began to remember that I had a life to live, not just a life ruined by someone else's betrayal. I focused on my children. They were the reason I couldn't allow myself to break completely. Their laughter, their small hands holding mine, their curious questions about the world reminded me that life was still worth living. I found work abroad. It wasn't easy. I was far from home, far from what I had known. But every challenge became a reminder of my own strength. Every day I survived, I reminded myself, I am enough. I am capable. I am strong. I started small. I cooked. I cleaned. I organized my days. I saved money. I made plans for the future. Each small step made me feel more like myself again. And slowly, I began to see the difference between survival and truly living. I met new people not for love, but for support, friendship, and kindness. I made connections that reminded me that there were good people in the world. People who cared, people who respected me, people who could never betray me in the way he had. The betrayal still hurt. Some days it hit harder than others, but the pain no longer controlled me. The heartbreak no longer defined me. I became my own priority. I learned that being strong didn't mean I didn't feel pain. It meant I could feel it and keep going. It meant I could protect my heart while still loving my children. It meant I could say no to lies and yes to truth. And most importantly, I learned that no one could take away my life except me. I began to dream again. I began to imagine a future where I was free from lies, free from betrayal, free from fear, a future where my children could grow up safe, happy, and loved. And that future was possible, even after everything, even after the lies, even after the heartbreak. I am strong, I am capable, I am rebuilding my life, and nothing and no one can stop me.